We're good to go.
Hi, I'm Taylor Patton.
We're good. Check. Roger. Finale, baby. With Dale. All right. Good? All right. Hi, I'm Austin Ertham.
And I'm Taylor Patton. Welcome to the Kitchen Table Podcast.
We're here to motivate, educate, and relate to you guys, sharing our stories, helping you get 1% better in all areas of your life. Welcome to Season 2 finale, Episode 46. We're going to briefly describe the 4 types of social interaction. And then mainly we're going to be talking about Dale Carnegie. If you haven't heard of Dale Carnegie, he wrote a very famous book about influence and how to influence others. We're going to break down that ago and wrote a page of notes, and I just want to discuss that. I know Taylor's read the book, so we're going to hopefully have a good discussion about how to influence people overall, and something in between that will probably be the types of social influence. We'll get into that a little bit. As always, drink your Vitargo, eat your green. News this week.
No, I don't think so.
I ain't got any.
Actually,
okay, you got it.
There was, I don't know about news, like this is news, but this is really something that happened to me today, that they, past here from Woodward Academy, made I call it a fan page, essentially.
I saw that.
Yeah, of the Triumph staff.
Yeah, it didn't look like a fan page to me.
That's what I call. Hey, haters are fans too. Anyway, this kid, it pretty much says like degrading upon staff, and I don't know, it's just funny because it'd be like he only knew our last names pretty much, and so I just like F Mr. Patton. And
At least you got called Mr.
Yeah, like and so it was a funny, like we had a good laugh and all that, like at work. It was funny.
I like it.
But yeah, that's about it.
I don't have any news either. The only thing is, you're going to want to hear the episode on Thursday, just because it's important this week. Let's just say that.
They're all important.
But this one's like big time. 1 year anniversary. Cake, ice cream, celebrate. We should get cake and ice cream to celebrate. Gosh, dang it, sounds good. Anyways, I've been on sugar today. Challenge last week was to smile at someone. Do you remember smiling at somebody and how it went?
Yeah, you yelled at me.
I yelled at you and you smiled at me?
Yeah. No, okay, I don't. Honestly, I don't remember. I totally forgot about the challenge this week.
I did it somewhere, and it was just at a time when it's like people are talking about serious things and you just want to smile. It was either at school or at our church conversation. I don't remember where exactly it was. It was either church or school, though. I remember the conversation. We were both standing, but I don't remember where I was. But in the moment, I was like, oh, podcast. And I think there's a stat that talks about how if you smile at people, they smile back. But I always do that.
Like the same thing, like if you had nodded someone, like
they had nodded back.
Yeah.
Quote of the week this week is by Dale Carnegie, of course. That says, when dealing with people, remember you are not dealing with creatures of logic, but creatures of emotion. By Dale Carnegie. Dealing with not creatures of logic, but creatures of emotion. You know what the first thing that comes to mind when I think of that is? Stock market. Literally, it's all about emotion. What do you think is going to happen? Stress levels, where it's headed, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm not.
So,
that's definitely that's definitely a great teller. Like how well you know your emotions is when you invest money.
Explain.
And that's when you find out like if you have good emotional management or not.
Oh, because it just fluctuates, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean somewhat. Also, it depends on the time you invest. You invest at the top and then it goes down. Of course, it's going to take more patience than investing at the bottom. Just like if it's easy to have your team, everything's going good when it's going good, but when things go downhill, how does your team respond? How do you deal with stress and adversity? Just kind of how it comes about. All right, let's take a quick ad break. Don't forget your Vitargo, links in the description, and we'll get back with Dale and the 4 types of social interaction. And we're back here with Gus Dale Carnegie. Say hi, Dale. Hello. Okay, Dale Carnegie. So the 4 types of social interaction, first of all, are conformity, meaning you conform, right? So you do what everybody else is doing. Compliance is behaving basically obedient, similar, doing what you're told. And then minority influence is very, I guess, rare, and that's where you're going against the odds and doing something your own way. So if everybody else wants to have this marketing plan and you decide that, nah, we don't need the marketing plan, we'll just do word of mouth. So that's what we're basically going to be talking about. That is the smallest influence. The largest is obviously obedience and compliance. We talked about conformity a couple weeks ago with how basically everybody wants to do what everybody else does. What's that word I'm looking for? Or you just conform. Groupthink.
Compliance.
Groupthink. Groupthink's a popular thing, especially in businesses. But anyways, let's talk about Dale. All right. So first thing, he says to not criticize, condemn, or complain. Is there a time that you have criticized somebody, condemned somebody, or complained lately? Has made your influence on somebody be less?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I don't know.
All right, well, how about this? Put these, what do you think is the most important for you? That everybody wants to feel important, okay? Health and preservation of life. That's probably number 1. Food, afterlife, sleep, sex, money, and their children's well-being. Which of those do you feel like on a daily basis do you think about the most? Any of those ring a bell?
You have to repeat them.
Health, which is probably number 1. Food, afterlife, sleep, sex, money, and children's well-being.
My job is children's well-being, health, children's well-being, all the same. I feel like I think about 6 of those things the same.
That's good. And I was doing a stress thing at school. It was actually at school, but it was for my own grad school stuff. There's like a stress test, and it talks about your quality of life, and it talks about all these in it actually. It talks about if you're getting sleep. It talks about if you're healthy. It talks about your religious being. It talks about your sex life. It asks you a bunch of questions. All of it. If you're okay with your money, and it gives you a scale like if you're satisfied, dissatisfied, you're pleased, whatever it might be. And then you add it all up, and there's like a scoring formula that shows you how likely you are to have a stress event later in life based on your current circumstances. It gives you a contract to sign to help you to have less stress and to focus on a goal area. It was really interesting. It talks about your quality of life and really like what sections that you want to do better at. So like my sections, I'm really good in the health section since I spend a lot of time in that. And then sections I want to change is having time to do what I want to do. So it was interesting, I thought. Another thing Dale talked about that I got was give honest and sincere appreciation. I feel like that's a hard one to give. Maybe not for you, because you're a less jealous person than I am.
Yeah, again, I think it's like a daily basis.
Okay, how about this? Here's a good question for you. How do you arouse other people? That's not a funny question.
By being myself.
What if it doesn't get them aroused? Like a kid.
No, don't care.
What if they don't like you?
Okay. Don't care.
So how do you manage them better? How do you influence them if they don't like you?
I don't need to manage them.
Yeah, like
it's easy like that. Essentially, their behaviors are going to be their behaviors, or they're going to be dealt with. If they can't figure it out, they can't follow the norms, then they just get put in an issue.
Okay, so how do you make a positive influence on their life then? If they don't like you said you arouse them by your personality or being yourself.
Yeah, because I'm not going to go out there and just be anyone. Like, I'm not going to go fake myself around. And that, especially in an environment where most of their lives are fake, or they've had a really shitty life.
Sometimes though, I think you have to.
So I'm not gonna go out there and beat anyone, but me, and if someone doesn't like me, like especially kids, there's a certain standard that I hold, and kids don't like it because they don't have standards that they've held before in their life. And I was like, that's okay, because at some point in your life you're gonna have to learn standards, and that either for yourself, either standards you're gonna learn your own standards, or they're gonna be taught to you. And that if you've never been taught or learned how to hold a standard upon yourself or from others, then it's a big wake up call coming to Woodward. And a lot of kids don't like standards. So then the day, like, it doesn't matter to me if the kid likes me or not. They're not there to like me. Okay,
so how do you show? So Dale talks about.
So how do I show a care, compassion?
Yes, like genuine interest of them.
Having conversations.
Like calling them by name, smiling.
Yeah, if they mess up and
listening, like letting them talk.
They're people, and especially like what I just said. Most of the kids walking in have never had standards placed upon them in their lives besides in a criminal and justice system. And that. So of course I know they're going to mess up. Of course I know they're not going to like you right away. Mm-hmm. So it's the full circle of going back and like having a conversation, having time, and making sure that they understood that it's okay to mess up as long as they're moving forward and learning.
If you're wrong at work, do you admit it? Like, do you let the kids know?
Yeah. What kind of butthole would I be if I was like, no, you're wrong, but then I was in the wrong? And because then it's like if they're in the wrong, then like they have to do accountabilities and they kind of go through the process of making it right with people. If I'm wrong and I can't take my own word that I'm saying,
yeah, they talk.
Then people shouldn't like me.
Yeah, I agree. I think you should be real, and I mean it goes back to being honest and sincere. And like,
yeah, if I'm in the wrong, I'll own it. Don't care. I'm wrong every day.
So how do you get kids? How do you get kids to? So it says to make people say yes immediately. Like you get them in. You know. How do you? You said you bring people in by your personality and having conversations. What are some? Do you have any examples or a task? Like for me, I bring a kid in by having a common interest. So kids like sports or there's science. Or maybe they want to talk about the weather. They say hi to me every day.
A lot of times, it also makes it like you have to make them feel useful or needed. And
that's the next point. Have them come up with an idea. Nice, good job.
And especially like if you need something done, and that having like kids and that like process through it, and that like if the kitchen needs clean, 4 kids can get on it and process through who needs to do what to get it clean, and the ideas that come about it. At the end of the day, I just need to make sure it's clean. But how it gets cleaned is upon as long as they're not doing anything super incredibly risky, then it's up to them how they clean.
Yeah, I think it's difficult working with, I guess anywhere, just kids in general, because you never know the method they're gonna go about it. Like it seems like to me, some of the way kids go about stuff, they're like, I'm not gonna do stuff in class, but I'll get homework done at home. Are you kidding me? Just do it in class. But then literally the next day, they're done with it. It's so crazy. They waste their whole hour in class, but from their view, okay, I work better at home. I'll get it done. Who cares, right? That's something I've always.
Or their homework is a distraction from home.
Yeah, like if they don't have a good home, you mean quality life at home. Yeah, I think that's also important. Go ahead.
You go back to the first question about like what you asked about
like the first one, the whole thing.
Yeah, you asked about like
I asked
like not contradicting, but
I said don't criticize, condemn, or complain.
I criticize a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't.
How does that affect your happiness or fulfillment? Because I'm thinking of every time I ask you something, I'm reflecting on it in my own life. Because I also criticize a lot. And learning about my stress class, it makes me a lot more.
Really, half my job is criticizing people in a better way. Like if they're not doing something the right way, they're gonna get criticized, and that they're gonna get that feedback. They're gonna get.
Which is fine the first couple of times, but what I struggle with is, let's say somebody doesn't get it and they keep messing up on the same problem. especially as a kid, it's like something so dumb. It's like, figure it out, dude. You know what I mean? Like, you made this mistake 4 times in the last week. What's got to change? So it ticks me off. Yeah. And I'm not very empathetic in there.
So then it goes back kind of like the toolbox of like, okay, if you're giving criticism, this kid hasn't switched it up, figured it out, or staff, the person, doesn't matter, coworker, and it's not figured out. So then like you kind of have to go revert it and try something else. Yeah. And that maybe things are a little, they can't process as fast, or they need more time to do an activity or get things done. Mm-hmm. But in the grand scheme of things, like, oh, like, essentially, like, people just make assumptions like, oh, you can get this done in this amount of time, or you can do this. Yeah. And nowadays, like, for some kids, like, they can't process it that fast.
Yeah, it just bothers. Like, I condemn a lot of things, and it definitely makes my happiness go down. So I saw there's a tweet here by Brad Stolberg, who is a sports psychologist researcher, and he says happiness equals reality minus expectations. It's like what happens versus what you think is going to happen, and over, if you don't get the outcome you're thinking or wanting, the next thing you know, you're condemning more and your happiness is going down, you know, because you expect that standard. It's like you said with the standards, if kids don't reach that standard, then you're doing more, I guess, managing than you.
But my happiness doesn't go down. I have expectations and all that.
Is it because you're willing to suffer for it, maybe?
Yeah, like, at the end of the day, like, it's their expectation. Like, it's my expectations for them, but it doesn't differ my, like, life.
So he also tweeted about suffering. So suffering is pain times resistance. It's like how much pain are you willing to go through in order to reach whatever it might be.
And that's a good topic because a lot.
I'll just retweet this for people to see.
A lot of people aren't willing to put themselves through any pain.
Yeah, because that's the easy route.
And especially kids. Like, kids talk about how hard their life is and all that, but then they can't make it through a 6-month CAPE program at Woodward Academy because they can't tolerate other kids talking or saying a certain word to them.
It's just crazy how different people tick. Another thing I'm learning about in stress classes, everybody has different ticks. And, like, to me, challenge, like, if I told somebody, hey, this is a challenge to have somebody talk bad about me and me not fire something back at them, I mean, that's easy. Sure, I'll just ignore you.
Yeah, but I care less.
Yeah, I just won't do anything. Like, to me, it's a 6-week program. Okay, I'll get an A. It's like that TV show, Too Hot. I think it's Too Hot to Handle, where you go on and you can't do any intimacy events at all. I think that'd be easy. You're on there for 6 weeks. Okay, I'll just go run. I'll go look around the island. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I play cards. Like, it's pretty easy to me. You win $1 million or $10,000, whatever it is. That seems so easy. But for others, it's like, this is so difficult. Just like people want to talk back. Hey, you can't talk bad about my mother or whatever it is.
I just one that's crazy. Like, I was also thinking that, like, the kids I work with and that, a lot of them, one of their triggers in that is like talking about their family. Mm-hmm. And that, like, their friends, like, their people that passed away. Yeah. One, like, two, it's that same picture of Tristan and I, and that, for everyone that doesn't know, Tristan's one of our best friends that had passed away in a car accident. But anyway, it says, look at this lovely couple. And I literally died laughing this morning, like 6 o'clock in the morning, because I was like, hell yeah. I was like, that's my brother.
Who cares, right?
Yeah. But like me thinking, I was like, if this would happen to a kid,
you'd be freaking out, you'd be ticked.
Yeah. And they, like, again, like, the expectations I had, like, I guess my work, I just like, I'm able to, like, categorize everything. But if that was to happen, like, a kid, and that really, like, had that trigger in that at work from that outside source, it's crazy. Because it's like, we can't deal with that.
Yeah, it's out of
and that we can, like, again, like, the kids that come from home passes sometimes, like, bring drama from back home. And it's just like, we can't do anything about it, but they're going to still take it out on us because they don't know how else to manage that emotion, which
as you build that relationship, hopefully it helps. And then you build the management, and you build the program.
And that's just part of, like, the process.
Yeah, it's just life. Not just Woodward Academy, that's just life.
Yeah.
Okay, I got a lot of thoughts going through my brain. It's one of the times where it's just spinning based on what we've talked about. Okay, so we talked about, basically you said there's a lot of drama, right? One thing to get people hooked in is to dramatize their idea. So I'm a huge dramatized person, right? So I think of this huge goal and I get this vision, which again is that happiness, expectations, and reality type deal. So reality minus expectations, and that brings me my happiness based on how much I dramatize it. But I always challenge myself because I want to get better, right? If you're not being challenged, you're not really growing. So the kids are all being challenged in this new setting or the program, whatever it might be, or having those ticks that set them off. So in whatever your situation is in life, if you dramatize your idea, you have a vision of it, you want to go reach that vision, right? So if you can challenge yourself somewhere along that vision to get you hooked. So as a coach, for example, coaches to get your players to be the best they can be in whatever it is, right? So let's say you are a basketball coach, since we got the NBA finals coming up. You're a basketball coach, you want to dramatize what it might be to hold the NBA finals trophy above your head. Okay, what is it called? The Larry O'Brien or something like that.
Sure.
Yeah, you don't know. Leave a comment. Tell us what it is. Anyways, if you dramatize that and you challenge them to win it, you're inviting. They're aroused, right? Because they want that.
Yeah.
So whatever situation you're in, if you can arouse them and dramatize them and then believe in them and let them, when you're listening, let them decipher through that. This is how I feel it's going to go. This is what I want to see. And they get into it, because then they have that goal. And as a leader, that makes everybody have a common goal and intentional with their actions. And when you're intentional, you're less likely to make those mistakes, and you can empathize with them when they do make a mistake because they're trying to go in the right direction. It kind of sums up what we talked about so far, I think. I just think it relates to any life situation. Speaking of leadership, Dale Carnegie talks a lot about leadership, and something that I want to hit on right away that I think is important that I learned somewhere else that he talked about is that you should always have praise in the slightest improvements, and you should always start with praise and appreciation before you criticize somebody. So what I learned before is you should have an 8-to-1 positive to negative. I guess situation or scenario, whatever it is, and then they're more likely to work on it because you praise them as well, and it makes them feel like you're on their side, and it just brings the chemistry up.
Yeah.
Like when you're saying you're condemning people a lot, and I do the same in school, because I probably don't have enough positive comments at school, but I would say the rest of my life, like kicking, when I am teaching kids to kick, it's definitely 8-to-1 positive. So I guess I'm wondering your advice for your job, because you deal with, I guess, more challenging problems than I would consider me at school.
Yeah. For me, I'm always like, I guess I like look at big picture a lot of the times. I was like, kids only see like what they see in the moment, and that it's very hard. I know you ask me what I'm gonna do in 5 years. That's such a dumb question for pretty much anyone.
I would disagree, but you can continue.
And like as a 14-year-old kid, you're asking what they're gonna do in 5 years. That means kids don't even know what they're doing tomorrow.
Yeah, but they don't.
They have no plan. They have no. You talk to them, they don't know it.
Maybe it helps give them a plan in that direction.
Yeah. So anyways, like helping them not see big picture, like not helping them see like way down the line, but helping them see like. Well,
I would say as a leader, you should suggest those things to them, like ask questions. Like instead of, because we give a lot of orders, right? And that's why we either give negative or positive comments, because we order them, right? You did this well. You need to do this, et cetera, et cetera. Get your homework in. Follow directions.
Yeah.
We say all these things, whether they're positive or negative. Yeah. But if we can change our setting to being more of a, it's on you, but I will guide you. Like we ask questions and they think of it, then that might come to life. Hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? How do you feel if this happens? Like then they start to have more direction and they're learning. the process or whatever it might be, science class, without even thinking about it, and you make them feel like happy, even though you might be criticizing them or challenging them, they just feel like they're on the path to success, I guess. And you're creating a good reputation. So I just think if we, like, doing my sports psychology stuff, if we ask, we need to ask more questions and then listen rather than barking at them. And maybe they won't have a 5-year plan. If they don't, fine, you're only 14. But I think to guide a direction, even if it's just for the day, if you can,
I guess that's what I'm saying. Is like their day is their 5-year plan.
yeah, if you can guide their day for 5 straight years and they can do well, man, they're gonna be in a great place in 5 years.
That's what I'm saying. But at the end of the day, we only can give them tools and to be able to figure out their life.
Yeah,
and to help them throughout their life. Because, again, like we're not there to
we can't live their life for them.
Yes, and we're not there. Essentially, like they come in, and that is mostly like a court order, and that's to Woodward. And so essentially they're there because their court says
they're forced to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that we are only able to give them ideas on how to fix their issues because we can't fix them for them.
Yeah, and some of them, they're not going to use their toolkit that you're giving them. Some of them are going to use the toolkit.
But as early, like some kids out there making an Instagram page about Woodward, like you know how much of a big of an impact that someone has to make upon someone's life for them to take the time out of their day to create an Instagram page.
Yeah.
And that's how big of an it's a negative influence right now, but I could see in a few years something like, dang, why? Because we made an impact. This kid took the time after he discharged to come back full circle, and I'm gonna use like hate, I guess, on essentially his dorm staff. Shows me is that we actually like impact his life.
Yeah. And hopefully he thinks about those other tidbits when he's in situations. Because as a leader, like you said, you can't do it for them, but you're suggesting ways to make their life better or make the team be better or whatever through your leadership. And Dale talks about how leadership is a huge role in influence because people look up to you or you have so much more, I guess, power. We've talked about power in the last few weeks to have influence over them. More power is easier to influence because people just know you, right? It's a lot easier for LeBron James to influence others than us because he has a lot more resources. He's famous, et cetera, but everybody can play a role in impact, no matter if you're a leadership role, sorry, that's my stem, whether you're a leadership role on your team in your company that has 2,000 employees, or you're the president of the United States, you can always impact somebody. And I think Dale goes through all those ways. Everything that we've mentioned tonight hasn't had to be, you haven't had to have a title for it. All you have to have is compassion and a brain to be able to think, okay, what's the best thing to do in this situation?
Yeah.
And that's what influence is. Like you said, we influence everybody we come into contact with in some way. It's just a matter if we influence them enough for them to remember or not. That's all the notes I wrote down for Mr. Carnegie in his influential book. Do you have any points from when you read it that you remember forever? I didn't know if there was like a certain point that you're like, oh, this is stuck with me type of deal.
That's the thing. I'm so bad at points. Like I read the book like 2 or 3 years ago, and I just applied to move on. Like I couldn't tell you a single thing.
You can't just pinpoint. Yeah. So maybe you use it though.
And
like just you don't remember the exact. Because I'm the opposite. I write everything down and then I use it after that. Whereas you just use it and you're like, okay, who cares where I got it from? I just use it. You know.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like I know it was a really good book, but I could not tell you what was the book, which my reading comprehension is not there.
Yeah, and we talked about types of learning and stuff as well, so
Yeah.
it is what it is, you know. You still get 1% better.
Trying to think. When you're trying to influence people, to me, it's just like you can't take anything personal.
Like they don't respond, you mean?
Yeah, if you're trying to help someone and they don't respond, if they don't want your help, that's not on you, that's on them. If you're giving full effort into everything you do every day, even when you don't want to, even on days you only show up,
that's when you really get better that day.
Yeah. That's all you can ask for upon yourself, and then other people will see it or they won't. Like, that's on them.
Yeah.
The only really thing that you really have for yourself is make yourself the best you can.
That's the goal. 1% better every day.
That's all I got.
Challenge this week is just try to put one of the things we've talked about briefly in this podcast. Anything that stuck out to you, anything that brought value to you. Try to use that upon somebody else that you're trying to influence this week, or like take the thinker. So either one, whatever works for you. See if you can use any of these tips that Mr. Carnegie gives and get 1% better and influence people. If you influence one person, somebody else influences another person. That domino effect. Next thing you know, the world's in a lot better place, and we need that right now in the world.
Yeah. One last thing, and that I'd say, and we hit on it a tad bit, but when you're trying to influence someone, if you are able to listen to them, as you said, and that goes a long way, because then if you are actively listening to someone and able to store that information in your brain, and that
then you can follow up.
Yes, and then when you come full circle, when you see them later on in the day or later on in the week or later on in the year, and that you're able to build on that rapport, which in turn becomes more
personable.
Yes, and you're able to become more trustworthy, and that's where a lot of influence is built.
Yep.
Is through trust. Yeah. And this will be my last example. So there's a kid in an issue. He's in a staff sport, which is just essentially where other staff come in and help out the situation. And he was just upset that he couldn't eat the food that was given to him, and the staff there at that moment could not get the food that he wanted or he needed or whatever, and so this kid was having a meltdown. Anyway, after kind of talking him down, he sat down and he just kind of talked about the issue of the day, and it was deeper than the food he was getting. Anyway, I hadn't talked to him in a week, and I was just walking through, and he came running out, and we had connected on fishing. This kid loves to fish, and me just getting back into fishing, and talked about going fishing and so he's like, hey, I've had a better week, and to see you when or if we go fishing soon. And so I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, remember that. A little bit goes a long way, folks. On that note, tune in on Thursday for the 1-year anniversary pod, the 1440, and then we got a little surprise for season 3 when that comes. So stay tuned. Big things coming on. Thanks for listening. Appreciate all of you. We'll catch you guys on Thursday. Bye. Love you.